Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today I am privileged to be joined by Rabbi David Sutton, prolific author and the author of the brand new Daily Dose of Pesukim of Bitachon. How are you, Rabbi Sutton?
Baruch Hashem, pleasure to be back here again.
First of all, Mazel Tov on the new release.
Thank you.
It's amazing how you've been pumping out not just books and not just Svarim, but really monumental, life-changing volumes. It's been a couple of years since you put out the Beis Halevi on Bitachon with your commentary, which has sold, I believe, around 30,000 copies. Just an incredible achievement. And you've put out other Svarim over the years, including the first volume of Daily Dose of Bitachon, and now this new volume, Daily Dose of Pesukim of Bitachon, which is only out a couple of weeks and has already sold thousands of copies. It's now going into second printing as of this conversation. So tell our viewers, our readers, what this volume seeks to achieve.
So, similar to Daily Dose of Bitachon, the original one, which is, like we say, a daily dose. It's a lesson a day, standalone lesson on Bitachon. The first volume was based on the Chovos Levavos. The Chovos Levavos is monumental work on Bitachon, but to read it straight, it's a little heavy for the average reader. So we try to bring it down to today's reader and make it understandable and accessible. And after that success, we decided to apply it, and here the background is Pesukim of Bitachon, as collected by Rav Yosef Zundel of Salanter, who is the Rebbe of Yisrael Salanter. And the goal is that a person reads a pasuk and familiarizes himself with the pasuk, almost that it could become his daily jingle. I mean, if I take a pasuk, and my today's pasuk is Ani barov chazdacha batachti yagali b'yeshua secha shir l'Hashem, right? Kigom alalai. I understand it, and then I just say that pasuk when I'm walking in the street, when I'm before I make a business deal, when I call the shadchan. I'm just saying those psukim. Right. And besides the fact that it arouses your bitachon, the Maharal writes it's actually a segulah for success. Mm-hmm. And I know a very successful businessman in Lakewood that tells me that in his office, they're not allowed to make a deal unless they read 3 Pesukim of Bitachon before they make the deal.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like that became the part and parcel of their success.
So as you go through this book, some of the Pesukim people are going to read, they're going to know, they're going to be familiar with right away. Kavi el Hashem chazak v'yamet zibecha v'kavi el Hashem. Baruch hageva asher yiftach b'Hashem. Bitchu b'Hashem adiyat kivka Hashem tzorei lumim, and so on and so forth. These are Pesukim that we grew up with. We say, unfortunately, we probably don't think enough about. But then there are other Pesukim, many from Tehillim, predominantly from Tehillim, that maybe we're less familiar with. But you start realizing how saturated David HaMelech's writings are with Pesukim of Bitachon. It was all Emunah and Bitachon, right. Emunah and Bitachon, again and again and again. But you bring it out so beautifully, not just explaining the pasuk, but really elaborating and embellishing and bringing in stories and examples. I have no idea how you were able to put together so much information. B'chazdei Hashem. But the book is also divided into 100 chapters or so.
120.
Right? 120 chapters, which also makes it very readable, very you can navigate it very easily, maybe using it as a daily reader and things like that. So this book is just what I would call the latest chapter in what I'm seeing as a Bitachon revolution over the last 10 years. And we spoke the last time we had an interview about the Rubashkin component, where it awakened Bitachon in people. And now, Kanai Naharda, so many shiurim and books and svarim on Bitachon that people are really connecting to, and you're kind of taking people by the hand and giving them that ability to connect to such a foundational component of our belief. This is really what you're doing.
It's interesting you mentioned Tehillim. I saw after I put out the book, Mesilas Yesharim, Parak Aleph, when he talks about Chasidus, he says that one of the ways to reach Chasidus, he says, is by reading Pesukim from Tehillim. He says, because David HaMelech was so saturated with Emunah Bitachon, like he said, it's just going to arouse you.
Wow.
It's just, there's a power to those Pesukim. It's interesting that the Sefer Charedim quotes his Rebbe, that he used to take certain Pesukim, and he would, like I said, sing them as a jingle during the day. Just you're walking around, just have that pasuk, And we really appreciate all those singers that make them, some of them, you say a pasuk, say, oh yeah, I know that one from the song.
Right, that's true. But you're saying something also that's I think very profound, where let's say during the course of a day, we don't always have time to stop. People are busy, they have jobs, obligations, they may be learning. People don't always have time to sit down and engage and immerse themselves in heavy study of Bitachon, but they could just stop. And like you said before about this businessman from Lakewood, stop for a second and say the Pesukim of Bitachon, and that itself, like Rabbi Yosef Zundel says, and other people bring, that it's a segulah for Siyata Dishmaya.
100%.
That's a tremendous power that maybe people aren't tapping into. Now, I know that this book is based on a list of Pesukim of Bitachon, as compiled by Rabbi Yosef Zundel, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's Rebbe, but there are other lists of Pesukim of Bitachon as well. What are those?
So the Maharal has a list. Actually, this is in the order of Tanakh. Maharal has a list in alphabetical, and the Ramchal also has a list based on Kabbalah, Shemus. He also has a list. And we're actually working now on volume 2 with the Maharal's Pesukim, and B'Siyat Shmaya volume 3 on the Ramchal's Pesukim.
And how will those differ from this?
Just different Pesukim.
And you'll have a commentary and explanation?
Same daily lesson, same style.
Wow, okay, so we're looking forward to that. One of the people who very prominently have been bringing out messages of Bitachon, and he's actually been quoting from your Sefer and really promoting this new book, is Michael Safdie, who's taken the Bitachon campaign and revolution very seriously. He has shiurim, daily 10-minute shiurim, and I'm someone who's been listening to him from the early days, and I brought many people on board because he's unapologetic about the power and importance of Bitachon, and I know you're familiar with his work, and I'm just bringing out his Avodas HaKadosh as an example of how the message of Bitachon is connecting to people. So I want to ask you two things. First of all, what do you think his secret is as far as why he's so potent in his message? And why do you think now more than maybe the last 50 years, why now are people so connected? And why is this message of Emunah Bitachon seem to have a revitalization?
So I have an interesting theory. First of all, to answer your first question, Michael Safdie, I attribute, of course, Siyata D'Shmaya and Schus HaRabim, etc., but a lot of the success both in the Beis Halevi and the daily doses because Michael doesn't stop pushing it. Michael's a big believer, and the reason is because the Beis Halevi is the one place that it clearly says if you rely on Hashem, Vada, you're going to get what you want. And the reason why a lot of people are buying into what Michael's saying, and this really goes back to a Bloch from Muncie, who's a little bit Michael's Rebbe in this area, is people took the Chazon Ish, misunderstood it, and basically robbed everyone of Bitachon.
So stop for a second, because I know you and I have spoken about this, the different approaches to Bitachon. We'll call it the Navardic approach, the Beis Halevi approach, and then what people perceive to be the Chazanish approach.
Good word, perceive.
Right?
Perceive.
Now, many people watching this may not be so well versed in it, so give a short summary of
the
those two
Chazon Ish
approaches.
says what Bitachon's not. He says Bitachon doesn't mean that everything's going to be good. So people misunderstood it as understanding, so I can't just rely on Hashem. He didn't say that. He said Bitachon is not a bumper sticker. In Emunah, everything will be good. That's not true. Everything's not good. But he doesn't say that if you rely on Hashem, you're not going to get what you want. He says in quite a few places that you will get what you want. And it's throughout the Mefarshim and Rishonim and so on and so forth. And because of that Chazon Ish, that's like seeps into every time you want to have Bitachon, but maybe
it won't work out.
Maybe it won't. And that took out that confidence. And I think what Michael's selling is that vados, that confidence that you can get what you want. And if you really rely, and he lives it in his own life and his own business. I've many stories about him that he himself could tell where he just sat there waiting a month or two for a sale. And that's it. I am relying, Hashem's my father, and I'm relying on him, I'm counting on him, he's going to come through. And today people need that. And I have my own theory. I don't want to this is really not, we don't have the Art of Being You here, which is another book we put out, actually in the back over here. We turn it over. One of the books is The Art of Being You. So The Art of Being You is a emotional wellness self-help book.
Which you put out just several months ago.
With the Dr. David Katzenstein.
Right.
And Baruch Hashem, it's also selling nicely. And people, we're living in an era of anxiety. The numbers have doubled in the past 10 years. And the question is why? Is it COVID? Is it the fact that you have a smartphone? And the whole concept of anxiety is the inability to deal with uncertainty. I need to be certain. I need to be certain. So it used to be you could flex your toleration of uncertainty. You go out in the morning, what's the weather going to be like? I have no idea. Okay, take my umbrella, I'll deal with the uncertainty. What time am I getting here? So I have to get it. Today I called you and I said, I'll be here at 8:47. The Waze said that. No, there's no living with uncertainty. Everything has to be certain. And that causes anxiety because you can't always be certain. Right. And that's why people need more bitachon. And we do need certainty. And what Michael's selling is certainty. Vadai. I want to be vadai. I want to be vadai. I don't want to have, there's always, the clause and the condition and the this and the that. No. I want to know that there's something that I can rely on for sure. And that sells.
So the obvious question is the skeptics, we'll call them the detractors, will very often say, maybe we're scared to sell that version of Bitachon as much as it's documented in our Sifrei Bitachon, from Rabbeinu Bachya in Shar Bitachon to the Alter of Navar, the Gemadrigas Adam, right, to the Beis Halevi, and so on. The Svarma Bitachon very clearly state that you can rely on the Rebbeinu Shalom, right, unquestionably. But the skeptics will say, maybe...
I don't want to call him skeptics. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein did not like pushing this approach.
Is it because they were concerned that people would not have bona fide Bitachon, and then they become disillusioned because they say, so. Here I am, I relied on the Rebbeinu Shalom, and I'm not... I'm not getting the payday.
Right.
Right?
Right. 100%.
And to segue from that, I once asked the big Mechanech, and I never really got a straight answer. Why, and I wonder if it's true for your chinuch also, you learned by Reb Shlomo Wolbe, you learned by Big Gedolim, Reb Tzvi and Abba Shaul. But I could say in the mainstream chinuch system, we don't really learn about Emunah B'tachon.
No, Rav Wolbe, interesting, saves Bitachon for all the way at the end of the Sefer. He believes that it's something that people, his line is, there's no area that people fool themselves more than in Bitachon.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And because?
Because
they think they're relying, but they're not really.
They're really not. It's laziness. It's you could use it to cover all kind of things. So it's an elusive trait, and they were afraid. Tell a guy bitachon he's not really holding. It's
and that's why, like Michael always says, if you rely on the Rebbeinu Shalom, capital I, capital F. That's one of Michael's lines. And that if is a very big if, because very often, like you're saying, people think they're relying. But when push comes to shove, they're also relying on whatever shtadlus they're doing, or their boss, or their friend, or a wealthy patron, whoever it might be, which by definition means they're not fully reliant on the Rebbeinu Shalom. And hainu hach, that's what you're saying, that's why people are skeptical, scared, hesitant to teach that form of Bitachon. Why would you be confident that we could promote that type of Bitachon and not be concerned about people becoming disillusioned?
I always say that there are levels. But it's just like when you learn Mesilas Yesharim, teaching Baal, we're getting to Kedusha. We're not holding there, but the commentary says, you have to know it exists. People should know that there is a bitachon out there that is, proven and guaranteed. You might not be holding there, but aspire for it.
Right.
And know there are people that have it and live by it even today.
But I want to add something, if I may, that I think there's a misnomer. Michael has pointed this out. You pointed out in your Svarim that there's somewhat of a mistake here. Bitachon is not the magic pill to get what you want. That's not why we work on Bitachon. That's not why we have Bitachon. The key to Bitachon is the connection to Rebbeinu Shalom.
100%.
Right? The getting what we need, that's
Rav Wolbe says that's the carrot.
Right.
That's just a little, he says, bad saying Bitachon shouldn't get you anything. But you're not going to do it So Mela, we give you a little
Exactly.
something.
Exactly. So that's really the key. It's that connection to Hashem and like all the Sifrei Bitachon talk about the menuchas hanefesh habiteach. That is the prize. The prize is the serenity and the peace of mind that a person who has Bitachon experiences, and whether he gets what he expected or not. That's all supplemental. That's secondary.
Right.
And I think that's very important to frame it like that, because then people will realize what the gift of Bitachon is. I'll add one other thing that you actually bring in this Sefer, that the Brisker Rav says that the greatest reward for having Bitachon is more Bitachon.
100%.
Instead of thinking that in every case, okay, the Rebbeinu Shalom got me through this situation, he got me to Shidduch this time, he got me Parnasa this time, but I don't know what's going to be next time. The Brisker Rav says that the greatest reward for Bitachon is that you'll have more Bitachon in the future. And again, this is part of this discussion of having that constant peace of mind and serenity, and ultimately that's the goal of this Sefer and your other Svarim.
Right, the Has edition.
And the Has edition. So, but talk about that for a second, that at the end of the day, the greatest gift of Bitachon is the connection to Hashem and the gift to have Bitachon in the future.
No, the Meshech Chochmah says the source of Bitachon in the Torah is Ubo Sidbak. That the connection that you have,
Right.
we don't realize, like all the Sfarim say, that when a person has a problem, the goal is to work on Bitachon. It's just, the problem is there just as a hechatimsa to get you to work on Bitachon.
Right.
That's what we want. You're missing the point if you think, oh, like, this is one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
I'll indulge you. It's in the Living Bitachon for Children book.
Yeah.
That the Nevardikers were in the forest. And during one of the wars, they had no food. They went a whole day fasting. They go to sleep at night, no food. They get up the next morning, Shach. It's the second day Yom Kippur. They haven't eaten. Comes Mincha, still no food. Their mom is crying out to Hashem. And as the sun's setting, a truck full of potatoes is going down the road. It hits a bump, and a sack of potatoes falls off. I heard this from Rabbi Ginsburg. I think it's Leah Rabinowitz's father, I think Leah Rabinowitz.
That's Reb Gabriel Ginsburg.
Yeah, from
the
Toronto.
Rashiva in Toronto.
Yeah, so I heard the story from him, and I never heard any sort of print or anything, just from him. And so the sun sets, and they go and they get the bag of potatoes, and they peel it, and they make soup, and everyone eats supper. Now when they daven Ma'ariv, it's not with the same screaming as the Mincha was. So Altzmarada gets up and says, if you gave up your Ma'ariv for a sack of potatoes, the goal was the potatoes, that wasn't the goal. The goal was the Bitachon.
That's great. I think one of the reasons why people struggle also with Bitachon is like the Chavis Havava says in Shar Bitachon, where he talks about, and he says that people struggle, and this is the age-old question Moshe Rabbeinu asked, Tzadik v'Raloi, and the Shar Bitachon delineates 5 reasons or so why tzaddikim struggle in this world, and then 6 reasons or so why Rishon prosper in this world, and very good Erlich Yidden, men, women who are just trying to do the right thing, and they're struggling, whether with a livelihood or shalom bayis or chinuch habonim or whatever it is. And they say, I'm trying my best, and it just, things don't seem to be going my way. And then they look at it and they see people who are maybe on a lower level of ruchnius who seem to be prospering and doing well, and people really struggle with that. And I think whether people want to admit it or not, that's one of the biggest impediments to them really internalizing emunah and bitachon, trusting that the Rebbeinu Shalom is orchestrating every single component of this world, that we can't even lift a finger without the Rebbeinu Shalom enabling us to do so. And I know this is a loaded question, but having written these Svarim on bitachon, how would you answer someone who posed that question to you?
That is the question that Moshe Rabbeinu asked. So there really is no answer to this question. It's one of the most difficult questions, and people that are suffering, why is this going on? Right? Yeah. Why is this happening? What's going on? And there is no good answer. We don't have an answer for them. Why is this going on? And like you said, sometimes it's going on for the struggle itself, that they don't realize this point. To me, that's the most potent answer, is that you don't know what your struggling is doing now. Mm-hmm. You don't know what you're accomplishing with this. You think you're writing the roadmap. You think If only I would have this and have that and have the other thing. Now the question is, what do you mean? But I thought bitachon gets what I want. I have bitachon. So again, do you have bitachon? We don't know.
Right.
And also, there's an unbelievable leshem that says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want someone to have something, he's not going to allow him to have bitachon. Mm-hmm. So he'll make the guy depressed. He'll take away his bitachon because ultimately you can't, like you said, it's not the magic button. You're going to outsmart God. If he doesn't want you to have it, he won't let you have bitachon.
Right.
I mean, the Chazon Ish didn't have children. You know, the people died, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman died in the Holocaust. Sure. Did he not have bitachon?
Sure, right.
So the answer is that David HaMelech died, you know, so we made a noise. And you can't beat the system.
Right.
That's an important point. People look at, like you say, bitachon's not a way to beat the system.
Right. You
and
mentioned David HaMelech. Few people in history have lived more tragic or difficult lives than David HaMelech,
right.
And yet he is the one
beautiful
who wrote
but I'm saying he suffered so much,
right.
And it didn't say, "Oh, look, if I'm suffering, must be there's something wrong with me." You know, he suffered so much, and he produced what he produced. It wasn't, and it's important to understand this that we at the beginning, at the end. The Chovos Halos, Rabbeinu both write the highest level of bitachon. He says is himaser nafsho. You're giving yourself over to Hashem. The Beis Levi writes this also. Kidmul imo. I don't have an opinion. Mm-hmm. I don't have an opinion. And he says that's why the lesson we used to learn. Great tzaddikim don't want to be matriach Hashem. They said, I'm going to start. You know what's good. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even going to. Maybe the Chazon Ish didn't even use his bitachon for children. It's hard to fathom.
Right.
But he says they didn't want to be matriach. You know what's good, I'll leave it to you.
Interesting. One of the other things that people very often think about that hold them back from really relying is that they say, I'm not worthy, Averis, things like that, but the Vilna Gaon famously said, right? Afilu Russia.
Right, Rab Machayim Russia, even if he's a Russia,
Zok the Vilna Gaon, that's the power of Bitachon. Now, you have to understand how someone could really have true bitachon if they're Russia,
right,
and so on and so forth. But theoretically, one's, Averis and mitzvah scale has really nothing to do with bitachon. Bitachon is an independent power. If someone is really reliant, and I would use the word surrender, if someone really surrendered to the Rebbeinu Shalom, that's the power. And I find that in your new book, in your new sefer, that this is a constant message. Of when you really surrender, you really rely on the Rebbeinu Shalom, you merit that transformational feeling of being enveloped by the love and care of the Rebbeinu Shalom, and then however things play out, you know that you're in the best possible hands. That's really what I think this book is going to do to people. When people pick it up, they're going to emerge, even after reading just a few chapters.
It's interesting. Rav Wolbe has a pamphlet that was put out by the Sans Klosenberg Lanyadо Hospital in Tanya. And they had different speakers. This goes back 40, 50 years ago. And they put out a pamphlet of different speakers. And Rav Wolbe was one that spoke to a group of psychiatrists and psychologists about mental health and religion and spirituality. And he says there that he found that people are depressed, reading them Pesukim of Bitachon. He says he did it himself. If you read a Pesukim of Bitachon with feeling enthusiasm, it could take a person out of his depression.
Really? Wow.
He says he saw it himself. I learned in Ber Yaakov was down the road. There was a mental hospital down the road from they used to sometimes the inmates or whatever you call them inmates, patients would even walk into the yeshiva.
Wow.
But he had a lot to do with mental health, and he had people that were severely depressed. And he saw that with Pesukim of Bitachon, he could
really
pull you
helped.
out. And it's interesting, when I was in Ber Yaakov at the tail end, 1981 I think it was, when Rav Wolbe decided to leave Ber Yaakov. Mm-hmm. And I came to him when I heard that he was leaving, and I had just started to get close to him. I was crying. And I said, what should I do? And he said, say Havdalah. I said, what do you mean? Hine el Yeshuasi eftach v'lo efchad. He was the first one who read to me a Pesukim of Bitachon and said, use that for your chizuk.
I wanted to mention this book has been sponsored by our good friend Yitzchak Menachem Haas. He sponsored the Zer Shimshon. He sponsored ArtScroll's Madrigas Adam, and it's a tremendous chus that he has to be able to be marbitz this type of work There's a beautiful dedication. He dedicated this book in honor of the October 7th heroes.
Right. It's worth buying the book just to read the dedication.
It's beautiful. And I just wanted to really kudos to him for stepping up to the plate. And he dedicated this with a passion,
Right.
with an
It's
excitement.
interesting how I met him.
Okay.
There's a siyata d'shmaya in everything, especially when you're working on Bitachon, you see it. So I'm looking for a sponsor. There's a lot of time and effort and work that went into this book. And I called one person, he wasn't sure. And I had called Aaron Zlotowitz to tell him that I'm working on this book. He said, oh, by the way, Yitzhak Haas just put out, from the back of the Beis HaLevi, he put out the list of Pesukim to give out by his son Eli Melech's bar mitzvah. I said, oh, great. So I called up and I said, oh, very nice. I called him, I never really talked to him. And he says, oh, would you like to have some? He says, yeah, sure. So he went and dropped 10 off at my house. The thin little pamphlet with the hardcover, beautiful, that, by the way, I think it's a great item to give out by Simchas, is the abridged Pesukim of Bitachon in the back, the thin list in the back of the Beis HaLevi. So he gave them out. Okay, and he gave me a copy. So I called him up to thank him. He said, what more can I do to work on my Pesukim of Bitachon? That's what he asked me. He says, I have this short commentary. I said, well, I'm working on a book to develop it. He says, how much time? You need 6 months? I said, no, actually 6 weeks. He says, 6 weeks? My son's bar mitzvah is in 6 weeks. If you could have it out by the bar mitzvah, I want to sponsor this.
Wow.
And sure enough, it came out Friday. His son's bar mitzvah was on Sunday, and he gave them out by his son's bar mitzvah.
Megalgal and schus al yedei zakai.
Yes, absolutely.
And Rabbi Yitzchak Menachem is a tremendous leif toiv. And he's Rosh V'Rishon L'chol Davar Sheb'Kedusha, anything that could be mechazik people and uplift people, he's there to make it happen, and he made this book happen.
And I had a similar experience with the Beis HaLevi, where originally my friend Mr. Sam Sasson was dedicating it, and he was fully behind it. And then our dear friend Mutch Newman was on his own working on a translation of the Beis HaLevi, heard about it, said, how could this be? I want to put out Beis HaLevi and someone else is doing it. He called me up, he said, here's the manuscript that I worked on for 2 years and I don't know how much money put into it. Just whatever you could do, please use some of it.
Right.
And we used some of his work in there. And then he called me up, he says, it's not enough. I have to have a chelik in the Beis HaLevi. I said, well, I must. He said, I owe the Beis HaLevi my life. I have to do something for the Beis HaLevi. And I said, I'm sorry, I have a dedicator. He says, can I speak to him? I said, okay. I called Mr. Sasson, you want to speak to him? He says, okay, I'll have some fun, let me speak to this guy. He was not interested. Much begged and pleaded and begged.
I didn't even know this part, that he begged him to be a co-sponsor.
Please, I want to be please let me have a chelik.
Wow.
And now he dedicated the Beis HaLevi on Avos Yisrael,
right.
And we're working on another now. And
Beis HaLevi on Anava.
Right, so we're looking forward to a trilogy, all 3 essays together. It's going to be something special.
When do you eat and sleep, Rabbi Sutton?
this is all.
It's a labor of love. Labor of love. This is unbelievable. You're doing so much for people, and you mentioned that Bitachon is an antidote to anxiety, to depression. It really, I've heard firsthand cases from professionals. We're talking about therapists, psychologists, of people grappling with anxiety for different issues, and it's not just a figment of people's imagination.
Right. I would still want to stress, don't think a person who has an anxiety disorder could do this alone.
Right. Not alone. In consultation with professionals.
Right.
But if it's a Torah professional,
yes,
they could really diagnose where, either as a replacement for medication or in conjunction with medication or whatever it is, this is the key to peace of mind and serenity, is making the study of Emunah and Bitachon an integral part of our lives. Again, not to get what we want,
but to connect.
But to connect and to get that serenity, and you're enabling that. So on that note, any final Bitachon thought, a story, a word of chizuk, a dvar Torah, something that you could share from the new book?
So interesting is these Pesukim in the back, that, like you said, this Pesukim we never even heard of. I shouldn't say we never heard of, but like I never heard of. There's a discussion over here in the back. V'yavo Yerushalayim b'nevolim b'chinoros v'chatzotzros al beis Hashem. It's a story of Yoshaphat where he had all the kings around him. He didn't know what was going to be, and how he uses the pasuk V'anachnu lo neda manaseh. Right, that's a pasuk we say every day.
Every day, right.
It's brought down. I think it's brought down in the Pesukim that when we sit for Tachnun, because we stood, and now what else do we do? We don't know what to do. We're going to sit, and now what else do we do? We don't know what else to do.
Right. That's why it's brought down in halacha when you say v'anachnu lo neda to stand up. Right.
So this comes from this story over here, and to me, what the most beautiful part of this book is, and I'm talking to myself, is I didn't know the background of the Pesukim. You read a pasuk and you don't realize where was David when he was writing this pasuk. What was going on? Oh, he's probably by a banquet. No, he's in a desert without anything.
Right.
And that brings the pasuk alive. That's to me the most is this concept. When you read a pasuk and you say, what was going? Ein Lashem matzar lo shia b'ravamat. Nothing prevents Hashem from saving, whether through many or through few. Okay, that would be a great song.
You're right. When we say, let's say, Maskula David b'Yosei b'Amara Tefillah, so we know he was in a Ma'ara.
Right.
We know he was in the depths of despair.
So I think today Avram Fried is coming here.
Yes, he's scheduled to come here.
Ein Lashem tell him this would be a great. I think you should give him a copy of the book and say, make some. I didn't know this. I'm embarrassed.
Make songs out of these.
Yeah, I didn't know this. It's a pasuk over here in Eov. Okay. I'm not an Eov expert, but after the Mishlei and after everything comes Eov in the book. And give me a second to find it. There's a pasuk over here. Oh, where's Eov? Okay, let me find it 1 second. Give me 1 second. Oh, Eov 11:18. Ubatachta ki yesh tikva. You would be confident, for there would be hope. It's a famous song, Yesh Tikva. I didn't know it's a pasuk in Eov. So we don't know how many of these psukim, what's going on in the psukim, and if we could make it our staple, that now you know that song. It's a song, you know that pasuk, and you're able to live it.
It's beautiful, Rabbi David. Thank you for the chizuk. Thank you for the information. Thank you for bringing out this topic in a very relatable, understandable way. You're enriching so many people with the gift of Bitachon. It's a gift.
There's actually, we'll discuss. We might as well discuss over here. Maybe we'll get a response from the listeners. So in the back of the Beis Halevi, in his back of this book, we have a list of psukim with a short commentary. Right. It's 100. There's a total of 120 or so psukim, 125, something like that, 120 psukim. The Maharal has another list of 100 plus psukim. The Ramchal has a list of another 100. So there's someone that came to me and said, what I would like if you just put all the psukim with a short commentary, make a small, like almost carry with you booklet, that you have all the psukim that exist, a full comprehensive list of psukim with a short, not a lesson a day that you're going to get involved in the lesson, but just to use it as a companion reader. That's another idea,
so
another
vision.
Idea
that's in your
in the works,
in the hopper.
But if there's anyone out there that says, "Hey, I like that idea," send the email to whoever it may be to let us know.
at ArtScroll.
At ArtScroll, you like the idea.
Wow, I love the idea. I think this is great. And Scharcha Harbe Moed, you tremendous achievement, and Klal Yisrael is indebted to you. You're helping so many people connect in this unique way, and we thank you for your past contributions. We give you a bracha on your future contributions. Be'ez Hashem, you continue in your Harbatza Satira and your Avodas HaKodesh, and we always feel honored to have you here.
Amen.
So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.